And welcome back to Coast, William Buhlman. And he is America's leading expert on the subject of out-of-body experiences and authority in numerous OBE and past life regression techniques from the shamanistic to the modern. And he conducts worldwide surveys, by the way, on out-of-the-body experiences, thousands of responses yielding incredible conclusions. 18,000 participants. Here he is, William Buhlman. Hey, William, welcome back. How are you?
Hello, George. How are you?
Good. Always a pleasure to have you on, my friend. Great topic, great subject matter. You know, when you were last on with me in April of last year, we were talking about the survey and the participants. Is it all wrapped up now?
No, it's ongoing. I still have the survey questions on my website that people, as a matter of fact, I'm always looking for more information, more participants in the survey. And I'm in the next couple weeks, we're planning to start a new survey, a more detailed survey that will be initiated in probably about 10 days.
Okay, tell us a little bit about this survey and how did you approach it?
Well, initially it was about the vibrational state. When I began to have out-of-body experiences in the early 70s, I was shocked to find that there was so little information about the vibrational state. And in other words, all the phenomena associated with an OBE, the vibrations, the noises, the sounds, paralysis. I detail these in my book. But a lot of these I found were very common, and yet nobody talked about them. So I wanted to find out more because when you're having these experiences and you have no explanation for them, they can be a little frightening for people. And for a long time, there was just a lack of knowledge about this entire subject. Matter of fact, we still need a lot more information about the whole entire subject of out-of-body experiences.
Well, you know, if you were to go outside and, let's say, talk to 100 people and say, hey, what do you think of OBEs? How many do you think would even know what you were talking about?
Well, I travel all over talking about this subject, and I found that it's become pretty widely accepted now. Now, I must admit, 20 years ago it wasn't, even 15 years ago, but now it's become part of our culture. And most people at least will know what it is, at least the people that I've talked to. I would say 60, 70% at least would know what the topic is.
They might not know how to achieve it, but they may know what it is.
No, not that. But I think it's become pretty widely known. Unfortunately, most people don't understand why it's so important to them. Because let's face it, 1/3 of our life is a complete mystery. You know, what happens when you go into this altered state that we call sleep? And many people are having experiences, and they don't know what they're called. They don't know what they are. They just know something unusual may have happened while they were sleeping.
And some of them are thinking they were dreams. They're not sure. You know, it's possible they were having OBEs, and they think they were just dreams.
Absolutely. Based on my experiences, which is over the last 35 years, myself and other people have actually observed people sleeping. And one of the remarkable things that we discovered was that people actually, and I'm talking about every listener tonight, will separate, go out of sync from their body when they fall asleep. And I'm not saying they float up to the ceiling, but they actually separate. Sometimes it's a matter of inches. But in other words, every human, matter of fact, every mammal, has an out-of-body experience when they go to sleep at night. Now, we're not conscious of it, or at least most of us are not conscious of it. During the dream state, we're actually separated. Our consciousness, our astral body, what many people call it, or our etheric body, is separating from our physical body, going into a recharging mode. And this has been actually observed by many, many people during an out-of-body experience.
You know, it's kind of funny. I've been looking at the prototypes online of electric cars. And, you know, you could see how they have the cord, plug it in, and charge up the batteries. It's much like an astral body and a physical body, isn't it?
Absolutely. We are charging at night. And that's why this is essential, because we're not physical beings. You know, many people lose this this are so obsessed with the physical nature of reality that they forget that we're only visitors here. We are not physical beings. And even some people might find this shocking, but we're not humans either. We're conscious energy using form for our experience.
We're really all cocoons, aren't we?
Well, and we can change these forms. One of the remarkable things that I discovered from my out-of-body experiences and from other people's is that as you prolong your out-of-body experience, you begin to automatically lose, or let's just say dissolve, your humanoid form. You slowly become almost like a globe of energy, a globe of consciousness with a 360-degree viewpoint. And this has been experienced by thousands and thousands of people have related this to me. So it was proof to me that we're not humanoid at all.
Why is it that some people get that jarring effect when they're in their astral body? They're not in it very long, and then other people can prolong it.
Are you referring to the return, the jarring effect of a return?
Yeah, sometimes, someone may realize they're out of their body, and someone with not a lot of experience, they seem to get slammed back into their body pretty quickly. Yet someone with more experience seems to be able to control how long they want to stay out there.
Well, it's mostly a self-identity issue. People are conditioned to believe they are their bodies, which of course we're not. But during our experiences, we go where our thoughts direct. That's one of the basic laws of the universe. And once you direct your thoughts to your body, that's immediately where your consciousness will go. So that's what causes that slamming effect. We have a natural tendency to associate with our dense body.
Well, William, let's talk a little bit about the survey, and it was done on an international basis, right?
Yes, it was.
How did you get your participants? How did you round them up?
Well, I was fortunate. My books are in 8 languages, and so my survey was published in 8 languages. So the same survey that's available in English was available all through France and Germany, all through, matter of fact, parts of Asia even, but almost all of Europe. My book sold well, and people started to fill out the surveys and send them to me. And I received an incredible, I still have cases and cases of mail from people who completed the survey. Matter of fact, I had to get an interpreter to read a lot of the stuff from Germany and France and Italy. And that's really where it comes from. Also, I've done workshops all through Europe now for 10 years. So I get a lot of exposure that way, and I always encourage people to participate, to provide as much information as possible. So it gave me really a rare opportunity to get more information probably than anyone else. Matter of fact, I know it is. My problem is I need almost help to analyze all this data that I receive.
Are you doing it all yourself, Bill?
Yes, myself and my wife, and at one point I had twin boys. We were all 4 working on just trying to analyze the data, compile it, and it's a big job.
It sure is. It sure is. Well, let's talk about some of the aspects of the survey. For example, tell us about the expecting mothers communicating with their future child.
That's one of the fascinating things that I've received. I just did a workshop in France and in Italy a few months ago, and I received an incredible amount of information. Even then, just recently, this is brand new information, where I had actually 3 participants, 3 women who were attending my workshop in Italy. They had been pregnant just in the last 2 years. And that's one of the reasons they come to the workshop, is because they had actually had an OBE during their pregnancy. And they swore to me, this is before the workshop, they come up to me all excited and started explaining how they actually communicated with their baby before it was born in what people would perceive as in the spirit world. And the baby, they had this in-depth communication where they even knew what the sex was going to be, even though they haven't had it. And they even talked about the past and how the two people had past relationships from a previous lifetime. Very detailed information. And of course, I asked them, please write all this down because I'll never remember this. And that's when I started to get a lot of new information just from that kind of thing. So a lot of people that attend my workshops have had profound experiences.
Now, how do we know it was an OBE and not some other form of telecommunication?
Well, because that's a good question, and mostly because of the way they described it. They actually talked, and I don't put words in anyone's mouth. I let them explain their experience because I know there's various forms of psychic communication. I'm well aware of this. But when they start talking about entering, feeling vibrations and then exterior, what we would perceive as exteriorization, leaving the body, and then communicating with this soul or this entity, however you wish to perceive it. And it was very clear to me they were referring to an out-of-body experience. Matter of fact, they called it an out-of-body experience. That's why they were at the workshop. But you're right. Other communications do occur, which are more psychic in nature. But this is where people have actually described to me, this is, of course, women, face-to-face communications, which goes way beyond just a psychic connection of just getting communication through images, which is what many people do perceive. It's like a psychic connection. This is a face-to-face communication with someone who is about to be your child. I mean, it's mind-blowing to that person. I mean, it's hard for me to describe this because, of course, I've never had that experience.
No, of course not.
But obviously, it was so exciting to them that I started to take more and more note of this, and I realized there was a lot of these experiences were happening.
I wonder if the child, when it grows up, remembers the experience.
Well, they certainly would in a subconscious level. Now, whether they would on a conscious level, I guess that would be a good question to ask in a future survey.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
When they're old enough to be able to answer surveys.
I would. Most people do not remember the pre-birth experiences.
Do you have a different view, William, on what happens when one dies, based on your experience with OBEs?
I have a very yes, I do. Quite based on my experience, which goes back 35 years. I've done a lot of exploring. I've dedicated my life to this. And what I have found is that the whole concept of a lot of the concepts that we now believe in are totally, there's no sugarcoating it. They're false. The reality that people experience after death is a thought-created environment. The universe is highly thought responsive, and many different realities exist on many different dimensions of reality, and different groups will actually create the reality with the group thought of that. In other words, if you believe, let's say if you're an avid Christian, you will probably end up in a group, a mindset that's similar to yours, in other words. And what I found is that most people...
Upon death,
Upon death, yes. Right. They will actually go to the area that's comfortable for them.
The Christian section.
In a way. Now, I don't want to simplify this because it's a little more involved than this. But it really is that we create that reality. Now, what is shocking is that many people limit themselves. What people's perception of heaven is really lower segments or middle segments of the astral plane. People are so locked into a form-based self-conception, they limit their spiritual growth because they believe they are a three-dimensional being. And in doing so, they lock themselves in the denser portions of the astral plane or the astral dimension. And most humans end up not in the highest realms as we would perceive it, but actually in the more mundane realms or realities that are created by that group concept.
So do you think, well, first of all, do you believe in a heaven and hell concept?
No.
You don't?
No, there is no heaven. There all the concepts. This is based on a lot of, not only my experience, but others. These are man-made concepts. The devil, the hell, heaven, damnation, all these concepts are man-made. I found no evidence to support these concepts. There's realities. And now if you want to call them heaven or in hell, that's your choice.
Right, right. I mean,
but
because
we put the labels on them.
So I think what they've done is they took the devil, and the devil, of course, to me is synonymous with evil and negativity, and they turned it into that, where I think what they're still saying is stay away from being negative, try to be more positive, more in the light, yet they've created it with these images.
Well, and they've not only created it, but they've reinforced it over the last 2,000 years. It's unfortunate that that's the case, because the only thing that limits our growth is us, our beliefs, our self-conception. You know, we are the ones that are creating the blocks and the walls around us. That's one of the things that imprisons a lot of people into the denser dimensions of reality, like this planet Earth.
Right, but we do have these higher dimensions, right?
Yes, yes, and they are available. This is why OBEs is so darn exciting. And matter of fact, I still don't understand to this day why this topic has not taken off, because this affects all of us.
Beyond this show.
I mean, yeah, I mean, way beyond our show. This is not, you know, you cover a lot of great topics on your show. But most people will not have an alien contact. Most people will not encounter Bigfoot and many of the other. Even though it's interesting, it doesn't impact people's lives directly. Right now, OBEs affects every single person on the planet, because we're all headed to we're all going to have an out-of-body experience one way or another, no matter what you believe.
At some time.
I mean, there's no escaping it. We are all leaving our bodies. So why don't we learn about it? Why don't we find out what's going on?
Didn't the Egyptians learn about it? The Tibetans? Didn't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Every culture has a rich history of studying the afterlife. They have a rich history of exploring out-of-body adventures. The Egyptians detailed it. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is based upon it, for God's sake. The Bible has all kinds of references to out-of-body experiences. You know, I was in the spirit on the Lord's Day, etc. The Quran is built on an out-of-body experience of Muhammad.
You have come up with one of the most incredible theories of the Nazca Lines, which I want to talk about later on tonight, that I have ever seen. In addition to that, of course, you have done some work into looking at the multidimensional universe. So let's talk a little bit about that when we come back, William. Tell us, you've got a couple websites. Which ones do you recommend? Both of them?
Yes, astralinfo.org and outofbody.com. They're both excellent informational sites.
And with outofbody.com, do you need the hyphens in between there?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's out-of- just like it's spelled, .com.
Okay. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie, William Buhlman, our special guest. William, let's talk, if we can, about the multidimensional universe and some observations in some of your work. What do we have here?
Well, that's one of the most exciting aspects. I tell you, that's one of the reasons that I still find this. This is the most exciting topic for me that I can possibly imagine. You know, because we all have an opportunity to be explorers and actually experience the multidimensional universe, not just talk about it and theorize. With OBEs, when you have an OBE, you're entering the multidimensional universe. You're moving to a higher vibrational level of reality. And that's what an out-of-body experience is. We are multidimensional beings. We exist on every level of reality right now. But we only are aware of the physical because that's where our focus is. When we have an out-of-body experience, we actually enter into the next level of reality for most people, which is, some people call it the etheric, other people call it the astral. But the bottom line is we enter another dimension of reality. And the physical world is actually the epidermis layer of the universe. It's a temporary construct. And a lot of people have a difficult time with this because it reverses all of our concepts of reality, because we feel that three-dimensional matter is the basis of real. And the reverse is actually true. This entire physical reality will be dust. And we, all of us, will continue to exist in another dimension of reality at one point in time in the future, no matter who we are. So this multidimensional universe gets exciting because each of us has an opportunity to actually experience it for ourselves during our OBEs. And it's incredibly vast. And I'm working on a book now that will go into this topic. It is a huge topic because there is so much to be explored, way beyond any one person's ability in one lifetime.
Sure.
But it's dimensions within dimensions. The concept, this is what I found, most of the current belief systems are flawed. There's no seven, or seven within seven. All these metaphysical concepts, I've not found them to be accurate. There may be 7,000 for all I know. But there's levels within levels of energy. Each one is a finer energy. In other words, just a little less dense. And they all exist here and now. That's what's so exciting. It's not somewhere else. The astral plane is right here with us. We are part of it because when you feel emotions, you're feeling your astral body. When you have a thought, you're feeling your intellectual body. When your subconscious mind works, you're actually touching the subconscious dimension. All of these, we are the channel for all this energy. So it's a very exciting topic because all of us, every listener out there can verify and explore the multidimensional universe for themselves and go beyond theories. And that's what I find the most exciting aspect of the entire subject of OBEs is this you actually become an explorer. And it's so exciting, it's really hard for me to express this because you sound, oh yeah, right, but it's true. Talk to anybody that's had an out-of-body. I know you talk to a lot of people.
Sure.
It's exciting because you're suddenly touching you're entering another reality. And this reality is very complex because it's more sensitive to thought, because the matter is less dense. So, of course, you can manipulate some of these dimensions.
In these dimensions, with our ability to travel, how did it start, in your opinion? I mean, this is the difficult part. Why is it even there?
Because, remember, the matter is the end result of creation. What we see around us is really the dense, it's like the thin skin of an apple. That's what we experience. We're seeing just a shade of reality. The true reality exists inward, in these finer dimensions that are manipulated by thought, created by thought. I feel that matter of fact, I know from experience that the universe is, they talk about the expanding universe. You've had guests that talk about this. You know why the physical universe is expanding? It's because the inner universes of thought are expanding.
We're doing it.
We are doing it. Absolutely. We and all sentient beings throughout the entire universe, because we're only a tiny fraction of all of the populated planets, the populated beings are in the universe. We're just a little tiny part of it. And every thought expands the universe. Every thought that we create is creating a thought form on the astral plane.
So you believe it was created, however?
Yes, I believe that there was a starting point. I believe there was let's just say a giant thought, so to speak, would be the best way to describe it. A giant thought of creation. And this expanded throughout the universe. Now, I don't know, I can't say who was the initiator.
That was going to be my next question.
I know.
Darn.
But I do feel that it's definitely, everything begins with a thought. All physical reality. That's one of the great secrets that everybody's, in the last year, I've been in China for 4 years, as you know, and just moved back recently. And I was not really up on all the latest books, and then I found out about this, about the secret. You know what the real secret is? Is that thoughts. Our thoughts are creating our physical reality. We're molding our reality now. When you have an out-of-body experience, you'll begin to see like clouds of energy close to you. And many people don't get it, but these clouds are your own thoughts that are beginning to take form. This is the true secret of creation. We are forming our reality by the way we focus our thoughts, because we're molding the energy of the astral plane, of the etheric plane. And these thought forms are the beginning, the seeds of physical creation. And by manipulating this energy field, that this unseen energy field, we can begin to shape and mold physical reality. This is the core system behind all magical beliefs. This is why rituals are used in church.
Millions of people claim to be abducted by aliens in their sleep state. I don't know what they're seeing, William. I don't know what's happening to them, but I will say it's strange indeed. Some of these abductions have been misinterpreted as OBEs.
Well, is that the way you perceive this?
Yes. Don't you?
See, I look at it the opposite way. I wrote an entire chapter about this in one of my books, The Secret of the Soul, about alien abduction. One of the fascinating things I discovered is that during my survey, I received about 200 letters from people that were basically abductees. And what I found remarkable was that many, if not all, of the phenomena associated with abductions were identical to OBE phenomena. Which isn't that a little bit of a coincidence?
Well, I don't believe in coincidence, you know that.
Neither do I.
But they do see alien beings with them. Now, do they see that in an OBE as well? These little physical beings running around, or?
Okay, now keep in mind, when you leave your body, you're in a thought-responsive dimension of reality.
All right.
And in a thought-responsive reality, your thoughts will mold the energy around you based on your preconceptions and your beliefs. And if you have a strong feeling, many people, for instance, have a very fear-based reaction to the vibrational state. This is one of the reasons I started to study it. It can be terrifying to people. You can't move. There's massive energy flows going through your body. You feel like you're being touched, or you feel like you're being moved. All of this is part of an OBE. And then that fear and your belief system can and will mold the energy around you. Now, I am not saying that every abduction phenomena is an OBE, but I do believe many of them have been misinterpreted as, in other words, many of the abduction phenomena are actually OBEs. Because when you leave your body, it's a very physical-like sensation. It's not this Shirley MacLaine airy-fairy thing. You are three-dimensional. You are solid in your reality. Many people don't realize that. And your surrounding to you is very solid. And everything that you encounter will be real to you. And many people will actually create a fear-based reaction. And it could be anything. It could be it could be a lion. It could be it could be any fear-based challenge that they may have to confront could manifest. One of these could be aliens.
Well, that's true.
Now, because remember, it is a thought-responsive universe, and we have to start looking at the universe in a more enlightened way, because we have a tendency to think of everything as matter, three-dimensional. And the vast majority of reality is not three-dimensional. It's not matter-based, and it's not form-based. It's all energy.
I guess I got to ask you this. You do believe in a creator?
I believe that something started the process.
Whatever it is?
Yes.
Whatever it is. And planned it. I mean, it just works like a puzzle, doesn't it? Fits like a puzzle.
It's an amazing creation. That's all. It is. It's an amazing creation, especially considering it's all here and now. Yet there's many dimensions. Yes.
You train people for OBEs. You teach people the ability to do that. Yet some people can't do it. Other people are very good at it. Why is that?
You know, that's a very good question. I don't really know. There's a lot of reasons for some people are just, and believe me, it's a little frustrating for me sometimes. Some people are trying so hard and they're having difficulty, and other people, the first attempt they have an experience. Let me go back a bit. It took me 30 days of training to initiate my first experience. So I don't consider myself a natural. I had to work hard at it. Where other people like Robert Monroe appear to be naturals. They were just popping out of their body spontaneously.
Yep.
I think a lot of it, and I have no evidence to support this, but it seems to make sense to me, is that a lot of it is past life training. Some people had extensive, let's just say, training, possibly as Buddhist monks. Who knows? And that training they've carried that over into this life, and they're able to initiate that state of consciousness more easily. That to me makes sense, because remember, we're the end result of a long chain of events, right? I mean, our physical life today is a result of a long chain of past events, way beyond this life. And we bring into this life many kinds of training, many kinds of traumas also. We bring a lot of baggage with us also. But many people, I feel, are just naturally talented, just like Mozart and Beethoven, when they were young children, were writing symphonies. It's the same kind of phenomena.
The Nazca Lines in Peru, you have a theory that's got to be one of the best I've ever heard of, beyond, okay, we've had visitations and they made these as a sign of thanks to extraterrestrials. Pushing that theory aside, I couldn't understand, if that wasn't the case, why in the heck would these people make these things if you couldn't see them unless you were over them? Let's talk about that.
Oh, okay. Well, let me go back a bit, and my take on this is based on not my theory at all, but based on my training that I did in Peru with two ayahuasqueros. They are shamans that use medicine plants. I had the good fortune to train with two of the finest that I know of. They speak only Spanish. These are true shaman. They're not these are the real deal.
The real deal.
And we were doing medicine plants, heavyweight stuff, ayahuasquero, San Pedro, and we were doing it every day, different ceremonies in different places. And through an interpreter, I asked the shaman. We actually went to Nazca. That was part of the training.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked the shaman, matter of fact, I had long discourses with the shaman on this subject, and they told me this story that was passed down to them, that the Nazca Lines, and one of these gentlemen were actually from that region of Peru. They were created as ceremonial centers, because if you look at the symbols, most of them have a round or a rounded circle somewhere.
Right.
And they would, the shaman would have a group of chilas or initiates around them, and they would have sacred ceremony in this, what they call the circle. And in the circle, they would do medicine plants. It may be different kinds. Could be San Pedro, ayahuasca, whatever. But in the ceremony, they're all doing the plant training. And part of the initiation of the trainees was to be able to actually, in the midst of the ceremony, they would do it, for instance, in the spider. The Nazca figure, the spider, has the head. That would be the ceremonial center, the head. Generally, that's where all the ceremonial centers were. There are 20 students around him, all very heavily involved in plant ceremony and deep meditation. They would sit there and leave their bodies, and part of the training was they had to rise above their body and identify the figure that they were within. And when they identified the figure, that's when they were considered passing. That's when they were perceived as becoming true shaman. That was part of the initiation process of a shaman in Peru. And this is not my philosophy. This was told to me by two very respected and old shaman in Peru.
It makes a lot of sense. I do wrestle with the extraterrestrial theory. I think part of me wants to believe that, because I want to believe that we've been visited and they were doing this as a gift to the gods. But I could see this happening, that it's a ceremonial situation for OBEs.
Well, it's part of their culture. This is an essential part of their culture. Ceremony was, remember, they didn't have doctors back then. This is where healing was done. You know, nobody went to the clinic.
Well, they went to the shaman.
You went to the shaman.
Yeah.
You went, and the shaman analyzed what was wrong with you, and then he did energy work on you. Many shaman leave their bodies. I mean, that's part of the training of being a shaman. Matter of fact, the word shaman means between two worlds in the Tungus tongue, which is the ancient tongue of the Peruvians. They have a deep culture of mystical out-of-body experiences. And this is just, matter of fact, all of South, the American Indians also. This is nothing really that radically new. But nobody seems to connect the dots here. And if you notice, look, next time you're looking at the Nazca figures, look how many of them have circles. Somewhere there will be a circle. In every figure there's a circle. And of course there had to be lines connecting the circles. But these circles were the pivotal energy points, because that's where the initiates did their sacred ceremony. And it makes perfect sense, especially considering the cultural context.
And I wonder if they tested some of these people at the time, William, and said, all right, now you come back and tell us, what did you see when you were out of your body?
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's exactly what this was. The whole ceremony for many of them was a test, and that's why there were so many different figures, because they would do this in different figures.
First of all, William, before we even get into how do we leave our bodies and give us some chances of technique here, why is it important that the astral body leaves the physical body, for example, at night and then comes back? Why is that all important?
Well, because, number one, answers. Self-initiated OBEs gives us an opportunity to actually obtain the answers ourselves. Let's face it, most people, there's 6 billion people on this planet, and they're all subservient to belief systems. Everybody has a belief system of some kind that they're adhering to. Whether it's religious or scientific or just conclusions based on theories. But imagine if you could actually leave your body and discover the answers for yourself finally. You know, do you continue? What is it like? What am I? You know, the real important questions of our time, of our existence, is what are we? What are we? Where do we go? Where do we come from? What's our purpose? These are the real important stuff. And unfortunately, it kind of gets lost in the media here. There's so much other issues being raised. So, self-initiated out-of-body experiences gives us the rare opportunity to really obtain the answers to the important questions of our existence. And I tell you, almost all the issues that you raise on your show, if you go inside, if you go within the multidimensional universe, you will find the answer, and you will experience it for yourself. And I'd just like to add one other thing. This is not based on theories and propaganda or belief systems. Every person can verify this for themselves. You know, I don't try to profess or teach any kind of philosophy. I steer away from that. Anybody that's been to my workshops will tell you that. I teach experience. Learn to develop your own ability, to have your own experience, expand your knowledge through experience.
Sylvan Muldoon Hayward Carrington, long time ago, wrote the book Journeys Out of the Body. That was Robert Monroe's, and theirs was the projection of the astral body. They said that there are different planes, different levels in the astral state, lower levels, and then, of course, you get up to the higher one of perfection, as you talked about. But what they did say, William, was the lower levels were pretty darn frightening. There were entities on those levels you didn't want to hang around with. Did you ever come across that experience?
I have not. And I'll tell you why. I think it's because it just didn't resonate with my vibration rate. Now, I do feel I get enough reports. I get thousands of people giving me feedback, and I've heard just about every kind of imaginable thing you can that's out there. And you know what it comes down to? It's really about the belief system and the vibration rate of the individual. For instance, if you don't believe in the devil, if you don't accept negativity in your own life, you won't be attracted to negativity when you leave your body. And a lot of people don't like that when I say this, because I'm attacking certain belief systems. But I've had 35 years of out-of-body experiences, and I must admit I've been shocked, I've been startled, I've been scared occasionally by, let's just say, unusual shapes, forms, energies, but I have never encountered what I would perceive to be a evil entity. And I really think it's because I don't buy into that belief system. Because remember, when you leave your body, as we spoke about earlier, you're entering a thought-responsive universe. And we are the creators of our reality, both in and out of the body. But we do it much quicker when we leave our body, much more effectively, because the reality is less dense. And our thoughts are molding instantaneously. Now, I do believe, based on feedback from other people, that yes, there probably are negative energy dimensions, because as above, so below. If people are negative, they are creating these dimensions. Mm-hmm. But I teach people not to encounter these kind of dimensions. I have never encountered them. And most of the people that I train have never encountered them, because there's no need to. You focus on the positive. You're trained. You focus on your technique. You focus on positive thoughts. You focus on a positive outcome, and you will receive that.
But if you dilly-dally in the wrong level, could be a problem.
Well, you can be definitely scared. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, they were, when they were practicing this, and we're talking about a long time ago, for some reason, they were in the levels that you shouldn't be, and I don't know why.
Well, maybe they needed that experience. This is a big topic, because often we will be confronted with our own fears. And many people perceive that as, for instance, might be the devil. But it's actually, for many people, an opportunity to confront the best way to overcome our fears, which is our big block that all of us are dealing with. Fear has to be confronted. And when you leave your body, this has occurred to many, many people, including myself. I write about this. I've had an encounter with a giant sloth that at first glance appeared quite frightening. And when it come up to me and grabbed me and then it licked my face, it dissolved away. This energy creation was a manifestation of my own fear. Unfortunately, many people don't perceive it this way. They take an immediate negative stance because they've been conditioned by their religion and their belief system to perceive all realities as an objective negative force. I don't look at the world that way. I perceive everything as an energy creation, and I'm at the center of it. So I can control it. I can, let's just say, confront this fear. And this is very important. This is a subject that's seldom talked about on the air. But many, and the entire history of hell, devil, damnation, often I feel this is a manifestation of mankind's own fear-based thoughts that they are confronting when they have an out-of-body or altered state. But yet, again, this is controversial because people want to think of this as an objective reality because their so-called book told them that's the case. But it's based on my 35 years of experience, it is not.
Now, are you? I'm sorry, go ahead, finish up.
We're confronting, people confront their own energy creations, fear, envy, whatever it may be.
Ever been concerned that while you're out of your body, some other entity's coming in?
No, that's not in.
That was another wives' tale, I guess.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of misinformation out there, George. and again, I know that there's people that will disagree with me because they've bought into this entire philosophy of fear-based realities that are after us. I have not found that to be true at all. Remember, 1/3 of our life, we are asleep. If entities are jumping all over us when we leave our body, why aren't they inhabiting us when we sleep 1/3 of our life? Why aren't we all being influenced by evil entities? Because we actually leave our body, like I said earlier.
Maybe some of us are stronger than others, William.
Maybe so. But the other, maybe it doesn't even exist.
Maybe. That's
again, it all comes back to the individual creating our beliefs, our philosophies that we hold internally mold our internal reality and our external. And if we hold fear-based philosophies, they are a giant block to our spiritual growth.
You write about contact and communication with animals during OBEs. I found that to be fascinating.
Oh, I have received so many reports of that. It's amazing. I tell you, every week I get a few that are just stunning. A lot of people have contact, especially with their household pets. I've had the same thing happen to my dog and my cat in the past. But I get remarkable stories of people communicating with their dog, of dogs that people will have OBEs and their dogs and cats will actually follow them. It's remarkable. And I had the same thing happen to me, and I write about it in Adventures Beyond the Body, where my beagle followed me out of body. And it's amazing. But people have shared this with me so often. Pets are amazing. Pets are, this whole philosophy that pets are below us, that animals are below us, is really a falsehood. Their consciousness, evolving consciousness, they're just using a different energy body in their evolution. And I have gotten remarkable stories from people that have communicated in detail with their dog, with their cats, and with other mammals. I mean, just because in thought form basis. In other words, when you leave your body, people have communicated with their animals, just like we're communicating now. And it's quite lucid. It's quite intelligent. There's, soul uses many forms in its evolution, and mammals come in all different shapes and forms. We're not, let's face it, we are a mammal. We're just a little more evolved by some standards over a dog or a cat, but they're still a sentient life form. They will continue after death. I've witnessed this many times, and so have other people. People have actually communicated with their dogs and cats. They found them by the bed. They have followed them. This is just a normal part of OBEs, actually.
What about communication with your loved ones?
This is one of the things
who
that
have
I
died.
Teach. Yes, this is one of the things I teach in my workshops. How to contact and communicate face-to-face with a loved one, if you choose to. Now, this has to be mutual consent. But many people, I have done this, I've communicated with and met my mother, who gave me actually a tour of her home on the astral plane. It was nothing it was a mundane home. It was a kind of like a row home.
Was she happy with it?
Yes, she was thrilled.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. For her, this was the reality that she wanted, and her grandmother was there, and many of her other people live in like a soul group often. But anyway, that's another story. People can communicate face-to-face with loved ones, and this is one of the reasons that people do attend my workshops, actually. This is one of the topics that people want to learn. Put it in a nutshell, when you have an out-of-body experience, you open up a whole new realm of possibilities. You're now at their level. You're entering their level.
You're coming into their environment.
Yes, and because of this, the door is open to unlimited possibility for communication that many people in the past have felt was impossible. And I'm not talking about just way beyond the psychic, because you're face-to-face. I was face-to-face with my mother I've been face-to-face with my uncle communicating. What's remarkable is, and I found this time and time again, people that die revert back to their ideal body form. There seems to be an automatic process, and I've witnessed this dozens and dozens of times. My mother, who died at the age of 73, when I saw her, she looked like she was 20. She was beautiful and young. But yet I immediately knew from her vibration, because you communicate through thought. That's really the universal communication. And she was vibrant, she was young, but yet I knew this was my mother.
Do they bring you messages?
You can ask and discuss anything that you choose. There's no limits. That's what's so remarkable. I mean, you can actually have a discussion. Now again, this takes some training to hold your focus. I teach different techniques, like awareness now. In other words, certain techniques will help you to maintain your focus, because people have a tendency, especially at the beginning, they slide. In other words, you can't think of your physical body during an out-of-body experience, or you'll instantly be snapped back.
Exactly. It doesn't work, does it?
No. There's certain rules of the road that you have to learn. And what I do, I try to train people. I have tapes, I have CDs available, and I train people how to not only initiate the experience, but maintain it, control it, and then communicate with others. That's one of the great enlightening things of this, empowering things. People really, that's a life-changing experience. It's just a mind-blower, and for anybody that's had the experience.
Have you ever had anybody who didn't want to come back into their physical body?
Yes, me.
Really?
Yes.
It was that enlightening?
I didn't want to, on several occasions. This is not unusual.
Are you forced back in?
You're absolutely connected. Believe me, if you could stay out, I would not be on this conversation on this phone right now. I can guarantee you that. I've tried. All this fear that somebody's going to take over your body, or you're going to snap your cord, or somebody's going to cut your cord, and I've heard it all. It's all bogus. Believe me, I have tried to stay out of body, only because it was so beautiful, so gorgeous. It was just stunning. It was beyond words.
What snaps you back, William? Is there a time factor or anything like that?
We have an energy connection.
I've always said it's like a silver umbilical cord.
Well, the Bible refers to it as the silver cord, and other texts have referred to it as a connection of some kind. But yes, it feels like you're literally snapped back. I've tried to, in other words, I teach a technique where you go to your higher self, and it's like you're floating in this sea of white light, and you don't want to leave. But eventually, you can feel yourself tugged back. And now there's many interpretations of the silver cord, but the bottom line is it feels very much like you're definitely connected.
And it starts like under your rib cage, right around there?
It's actually, every time I've felt it, it was in it's almost like the small of my back, in the spinal column. I've actually felt this, by the way. It was about 1 inch in diameter. It felt like a cord. This is early on.
And it can stretch endlessly, right?
Yes. But this is a big topic, because this only connects to your etheric body. It's not a connection to your, this is my perception. It's not connected to your higher bodies, your mental body, your subconscious body. It's a denser connection. This is where your energy flows from. This is very energetic. It's not just a cord. I've observed this, and others have observed
there's a reason for it.
It's an energy conduit. This is where the energy from the higher planes is channeled into your etheric body and then trickles into your physical body. This is why we sleep at night, because we're actually disconnecting from the physical, and we're recharging our etheric body, or our energy duplicate.
Some people who don't sleep well, are they having problems? Maybe they don't leave their body, or maybe it's not long enough?
No, it has nothing to do with that. Some people are just not, let's just say, some people don't need, as you get older, you don't need as much sleep to begin with.
Right.
I'm almost 60, And I sleep like 5 hours where I used to sleep 8.
Yeah, exactly. And you're up and you're refreshed.
It's a part of the natural process. I think we need less recharging, possibly. Again, that's my theory on this.
Well, I think you're right.
But there's a definite, all these fears that you've heard, and I know you've probably heard them all from different guests about fear you're going to be attacked, fear you're going to not return, fear somebody's going to do this. I have found all those fears to be totally bogus.
We've probably started most of them. You never know.
But I'm telling you, they are definitely not, there's no evidence to support them based on my experiences over the last 35 years. Once we get our biggest problem is our own fears, because we are creating our own limits, not only on the physical world, but in the inner worlds.
And welcome back to Coast. We're with William Buhlman. William, let's talk a little bit about some of these life-changing benefits you say are obtained through OBE experiences. How does it...
Oh, absolutely. This is what makes the entire subject so exciting. The answer is number one. When you leave your body, you go to the source. You actually go beyond speculation. You discover you explore your own immortality. You know it. You no longer believe you're a knower. It's a powerful statement in and of itself. But many people experience, in one of my books I detailed 27 benefits that people receive. Often it's just knowledge. You expand your knowledge of the universe and yourself. Many people begin to realize how powerful their own thoughts are, and they begin to take control of their own lives because they realize that we're in a thought-responsive universe. So it begins to sink in, my God, if I can manipulate this dimension, I can manipulate all dimensions with my own thoughts. And it's an empowering experience. It's difficult to even put into words because it's experiential. But you begin to take stock of your own creative ability, and you begin to realize that, yes, I don't have to depend on belief systems. I don't need to be a pawn of the religions or my government or anyone else. I'm empowered to discover the answers for myself.
Even if you're not successful with an OBE, the attempt, the meditation, and what you try to do, that should help you in all walks of life, won't it?
Absolutely, because that's what this is. It's a meditation. And if we have time, I would love to share at least one technique that people can...
Absolutely. How long does it last so I can time part of the program to that?
I can do it in a minute, hopefully. A minute or less.
Okay, great. We'll do that before we're done with this hour.
Okay.
And then we'll go to calls next hour as well.
I also have products that help people to do this. And at the moment, I have a toll-free line that people can call to check out the different products.
All right. Can they also get info on your website?
Yes.
Okay.
At Astral Info. If it's okay with you, may I give out this toll-free number?
Yeah, sure thing. Of course.
It's 888-426-3917.
Is somebody there to answer questions and things?
Yes, there is. Okay. And we have a promotion going on with a 4-CD set with a book, and you receive a free Om CD. But this is a training process. It's about learning how to explore and discover yourself, because we're not physical beings. This is so exciting that because it opens up a whole new door for people.
Does it make you a happier person?
I think it does a lot of things. Yes, because you become more knowledgeable. I think it opens up. It makes your life, at least for me, I'm speaking for myself right now, life is exciting because it is an adventure. Every time you go to sleep, you have an opportunity. Every time you lay on the couch and do a meditation, you have an opportunity to have a profound experience. It brings a whole new element into people's lives that they're lacking. Let's face it, one of the reasons people are drawn to religions is because there's a hole in their life. There's that spiritual need, and they don't know how to fill it, so they latch on to what's currently available. But imagine if you could just have your own profound spiritual experiences, or however you wish to term it, and connect to within yourself, and just it opens up a whole new world, a realm of reality that's mind expanding. A lot of people feel that it opens a door to not only, let's say, a more fulfilling life, but it also opens the door to what some people even perceive as they become channels for healing.
I think you're right. I'm going to tell you a quick story, William. When I was 11 years old, I had an OBE accidentally. I had a fever, stayed home from school, was bouncing along the ceiling. It did not last long at all because I didn't even know what it was until I got jarred back into my body. And I realized it wasn't a dream because it was it was real. It was absolutely real. Dreams are real, but I mean, it didn't have that dream feeling to it at all. It was like I was on the ceiling and my eyes were open. It had that kind of a feel, and I saw my 11-year-old body in bed, and then bang, down I came. I have not been able to duplicate this. I got really close sometimes when I would practice these techniques, my techniques, I guess. And I went out and got Robert Monroe's book and things like that. And like I mentioned, Hayward Carrington and Muldoon and Robert Crookall and all these old people who did, research years ago. But I wasn't able to do it, but I got close. And the techniques I tried was, right before you go to sleep, you got to wake up. Even if you think you're in a dream, you got to wake up. I try to keep telling myself that. And I meant wake up in that state. And I just wasn't able to do it. But I'll tell you the one thing that did happen to me. Once I had that experience, it was almost as if a portal opened up in my enlightened self. I began to do things that I still do. I've gotten better, that I could never do before that. And even though I was 11 years old, I got to be more intuitive. My hunches were better. My perception of things in life got a little more keener. I didn't always, throughout my life, go with my instincts and my gut and my intuition. I sometimes went opposite that. And almost every time I got screwed up doing it. And almost every time. And so even now, at this age of 57, I try to tell myself, okay, you know where this is headed, change it. Don't do it. And I'm trying to learn that now. But I got to tell you, ever since that first experience at 11, it did something to me. Am I accurate with that thought?
Oh, that's very well said, George, because it opens you up. And it's a hard thing to explain. You put it, you said it beautifully, because it's so difficult to explain these things. You open up to a new reality. You open up to your own potential. You become more intuitive. Many people, after even their first OBE, will suddenly become more psychic. I don't even know exactly why, except that we're more open. Because you're opening up to another aspect of yourself. And you're becoming multidimensional, because we're multidimensional beings. And as we open up ourselves to our multidimensional nature, we begin to tune into these innate abilities we have, which one of those is psychic abilities. Our focusing or accepting our intuition. And this is just a common experience for people. The more open we become, the more in tune we are with all of our true potential as a human. This is difficult to put into words because it's an energy opening. It's a consciousness opening. And people experience it and they know it's happening. And it's a powerful part. And imagine if you continue to have OBEs, if that process just magnifies itself. And it also impacts your physical world, I feel. I've traveled all over. I guess I just come back from 4 years in China. I think my inner life impacted my physical life. Because the more I explored inwardly, the more I ended up exploring externally.
Right,
I ended up spending 4 years in Asia. I've been all around the world. It's in other words, as above, so below. The more we do inwardly, the more in tune we are, the more things will happen on the outside for us. And it's spontaneous. It's not like I'm trying to do this or trying to do... Things just happen for you because we become an open channel. And as we become an open channel, the universe provides us with opportunities in our lives.
When you don't push, it happens.
Yeah, you have to be, it's open and receptive. And that's a difficult thing to try to convey, because it's it's a non-physical type of, we're so used to pushing and making things happen. Here you're just you're opening and allowing the universe to, but basically this is the way I perceive myself. I'm an open channel for the power of the universe to operate through me.
Right.
And the more I am that, the more the universe will support me in my activities, because I'm providing something for the whole, for the group consciousness. And the more that we work for the group consciousness, as you are as a host, you're providing a great service for the group consciousness of humanity. And as we do this, we receive what we need to continue our quest, to continue our mission. Because that's really what it is. It's about connecting to our personal mission in this life. And it's about service. The more we're of service of others, the more opportunities are available to us.
It's like getting tuned into the wireless internet somehow, as I call it, isn't it? I mean, and you do it. So, in my case, the quest to try to do this again kept tuning me up, even though I wasn't able to pull this off. Maybe you can help me one day. It did give me, I think, a foundation that I might not have had any other way.
I think definitely. And meditation has the same kind of those who go into deep meditative states also. So it isn't just OBEs. It's anything that would take us inward. But OBEs is it's so powerful for people. It's hard to ignore it. But anything that takes us inward allows us to open up and be receptive to this immense power that's flowing through us, especially when you consider that our thoughts are creating our reality. Amazing. If you really internalize that, it's mind-blowing. It's like we're each nuclear reactors walking around, but we're stunting our own growth. And the more we open, we allow that nuclear power to begin to be expressed in our own lives, because that's truly what we're capable of. We have the power is beyond our ability to comprehend. And the more we open to it through OBEs, meditation, the more we can begin to express that in our own lives. And it is just an incredible, wonderful process.
It really is. And I would implore that everybody who feels negative about life, that they start working on things like this, because it will change their life.
Oh, absolutely. Because that's a shame today that so many people are focusing on the negative. That's the biggest problem in our society.
Well,
right
they're being bombarded with it, William, every day. I mean, you look at what's happening in society today, on this planet today. It is amazing. The fact that people can even hold on is, I think, a gift at this point.
Well, when people don't realize, when they focus on negativity, they draw that in their own lives. And it's a principle of the universe. There's no getting around it. We attract what we think about. It's that simple. And that's one of the things about OBEs. You realize that when you have an OBE, how powerful you are. Your thoughts are manifesting your reality. And you really begin to take stock of your own thought process. You begin to realize, don't continue to manifest these negative thoughts, because they will become physical in your life. And it's a shame. That's what 9/11 has done. There's been a great shift of consciousness at 9/11, because we've become a fear-based society.
True.
And this has had this is one of the reasons the economy is going south. It's all part of this negativity. And the housing issue, if you look at it, it's all about energy. And the more that the group, 300 million Americans, are thinking negative, it has a huge global impact on every aspect of our lives. The property values, the job markets, the core underlying issue of everything, including the economy, is our thought process. And as long as we continue to think negative and fear-based, we will continue to be in a state of struggle. And that's why we have to break out of as an individual. And that's one of the things I talk about in my workshops, breaking out of this cycle of negativity that we have, where we're surrounded, we're bombarded with negativism. And we have to break free of that. We have to create a bubble around us, of energy bubble, and begin to focus on the positive. Because when you focus on the positive, then the positive will manifest in your life. And this is incredibly important for all the listeners out there to take to heart. And OBEs is just one way to do this, because you begin to see your own future manifested through thought forms. But for God's sake, focus on only the positive and never focus on the negative. And then you will see a change in your life manifest.
It's huge.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Everything that's happened in my life, I once made a list of 50 things I wanted to experience when I was younger. And I wrote them down during a boring business meeting. And within 7 years, I had these are 50 things that were impossible at the time because I had 2 small children, no money. Within 7 years of focusing on these items, they all manifested. There were travel to all over the world, all kinds of things. Most of it was travel, going to see the Great Wall, going to Paris, going to Rome. I've done all these things because I focused on these 50 positive things. I crystallized. All matter is crystalline thought. That's what matter is. And the more we focus on the positive aspects of this crystalline thought, the more it will manifest in our lives. This is the entire key to creation, and the entire key to our individual creation for each of us.
You know how sometimes when you're ready to fall asleep, you feel that jarring effect? Is that the astral body starting to leave the physical, and then somehow it comes right back down again?
Absolutely. That's the shift of. It's many people would perceive it as the etheric. It's the what I perceive as as the energy duplicate. But yes, that's your energy body separating from. Every time you get that jerk back, and every listener right now has experienced this. You feel like you've just fallen into your bed or on your sofa. You were floating above. That's exactly what's happening. It's an abrupt reconnection of, let's call it, your astral body to your physical body. And this is all part of the OBE training process. When you begin to self-initiate OBEs, this will happen quite frequently.
What about the old hag syndrome? Does that have anything to do with this?
That is also, yes, it does. The old hag syndrome, or there's many words for it, but yes, it's an energy blockage is how I perceive it. I do not perceive it as an objective entity that's actually sitting on your chest. I've experienced this as like a bag of sand on my chest. And it's generally it's just an energy block. And there's certain techniques you can do to eliminate this. You send light to it, for instance.
All right, we've got a minute to go. Go for it. The technique.
Well, one of the easiest techniques is to simply use affirmations as you fall asleep. Now, I write about 100 different techniques, but let me share one that's probably the easiest. As you're falling asleep, and ideally, do not do an out-of-body technique in bed. We're conditioned to sleep in bed. Use your sofa. Ideally, sleep for 4 hours, get up in the middle of the night, then go to your sofa, and then begin to repeat affirmations. Get comfortable in your sofa and repeat, now I'm out of body. And hold that thought, that affirmation, as your last conscious thought as you're beginning to drift to sleep. And that can really initiate an out-of-body experience. Now, one of the keys is to get up in the middle of the night, ideally, and move to your sofa. Now, and the reason I stress this is because you're conditioned to sleep unconsciously.
Right.
In your bed.
Yet you still want to be tired to be able to pull this off.
Right. You want to be rested, tired. So it's perfect during a nap. But go to the sofa, do a solid affirmation.
Okay, welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, William Buhlman, and, of course, your phone calls. William, tell me about your training sessions. How does that work?
Well, they're generally 3 days, pretty intensive. It's based on techniques. I use a lot of hypnosis in my workshops. So I start out giving people basically a hypnotic training to go into, as fast as possible, into a trance-like state, at least as close as possible.
Self-hypnosis? You teach
Yeah,
them?
well, I do a group hypnosis, but I also teach people how to do self-hypnosis.
Okay.
But I do group hypnosis on the entire, I use various techniques to basically allow people to get relaxed and enter an altered state of consciousness as quickly as possible. And then we begin to do various techniques. I start out with fear reduction, and then I go into opening techniques, and then we go into OBE training techniques, for instance, the target technique. And we do I do a series of techniques designed essentially to open people up so they can begin to have the experience as soon as possible. It's I've been doing this now for 20 years, so I have kind of my own formula I use.
Well, it works for you.
Yeah, but it takes practice. You know, most people. This is not just. I don't want to give the wrong impression that this is some kind of instant. It's not. Most people do have to. It's a matter of dedication for many people and repetition.
But, you know, as what has happened to me, William, and this is what's so important, even if they don't achieve the OBE this time or the next time, the training or the meditation or the tuning up to get to that point, I think, gives everyone just a tremendous boost.
Oh, absolutely. It's powerful.
Yep.
I do a cleansing technique that people love, where you open up the top of your head, and there's this brilliant orange liquid flows through your entire body, cleansing you.
All right, great. Hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Next up, first-time caller line, Mark. You're on the air. Hey, Mark.
Hey, George. This is Mark from Riverside, California.
Sure.
I just got a question. I'll take my answer off the phone. I just want to know, how does one think positive or have a positive attitude when one has nothing but negativity in their life?
It takes a little bit of self-control. I agree. We're all surrounded by negativism. I also. There's no getting around it. You turn on the news, and that's all you're going to hear. You have to begin. I do a technique where I surround myself with a bubble of energy. You can make this any color you like, but I surround myself with a bubble of energy, and inside that bubble, my own personal reality is only positive energy. And that is my energy. And in a sense, it's like a force field. I do several things. I don't hang around with negative people. I just have exorcised them from my life, essentially. I don't watch all the negative news on a constant basis because it's all a repeat of the same crap in my mind. There are certain things that I've done externally, but I really feel that having your own, let's just say, force field around you really helps. And then begin to create like a vision board, as some people call it. Begin to visualize your perfect future. Make a list of affirmations, of goals, like I talked about earlier. I teach people to do 50 goals. Write them down. Get pictures of them. Surround yourself with what you want to manifest in your life. And then begin to think about those things instead of all this crap that's happening around us. And you'll begin to see a shift occurring. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be instant, but it will occur. It may take months, it may take a week, but you will begin to see changes. Synchronicities will kick in. Opportunities will appear. It happens to me constantly. It just works. The key is, though, to do these simple little techniques.
Okay, next up, let's go to our wild card line. Welcome to Coast. You're on the air with us. Hello there.
Was that Colin?
Hi.
Hi, it's Colin from Thousand Oaks.
Hey, Colin.
Something I wanted to say that I think it's important for us to know our spiritual side and, to kind of experience that. But ultimately, right now, we live in a physical environment. I think, we're eternal. We are going to spend most of our time through eternity in a spiritual realm. God has given us a physical being to experience right now, and I think that we should kind of concentrate on enjoying this physical realm that that we live in.
I agree. I've always said never waste a day.
I mean, I've experienced these OBEs probably, hundreds of times throughout my life, and I experience a lot of deja vu, so I know that that's tied in with these OBEs. But, God has really presented me with this physical world. So my statement to you would be that, granted, get to know our spiritual side, but really experience the beauty that God has given us. And my question to you is, if you don't experience this negative thing, this Satan or evil, does that mean that it doesn't exist?
What do you think?
That's a good question. I do not accept it as a entity as it's presented to us in many religions, as a conscious entity. I feel that there's positive and negative energies out there, but I don't put a personality behind that type of energy. That's what I meant about not accepting it. I don't accept it as a personality that's influencing me. And I think that's an important distinction to make. Also, I do agree with you. We're in the physical body, and the physical body is our primary focus. But there's a connection. We're, like I mentioned earlier, we're multidimensional beings. Many people never experience their spiritual side. You have. But many people never do. They've locked into a belief system, and they don't even attempt to go beyond or let's just say have a spiritual experience. That I find to be very sad and restrictive. And that's why I think it's a combination. We have to have balance. We have to have spiritual experiences, and they will enhance our physical life. But I do believe that, yes, the physical body is... OBEs is not a escapism. It's just a way of enhancing our life, not a way of escaping from the physical side of life.
So true. Let's go east. You're on Coast to Coast. Hi, Scott.
Oh, morning, George.
Sure thing.
Hopefully I may get a couple questions answered.
We've got time for it.
Past experiences. When I was between 5 and 10 years of age, I had numerous what I would call dreams. I would either be on a swing, and I would love to let go, and I would literally fly over my neighborhood where I grew up at. The other type of dream I had numerous times is I would wake up in my bed, and my bed, this may sound crazy, would literally like float out of my house, down the hallway, out the door. I would visit my elementary school, my friends' houses, and here I would, in this dream, I'd be sitting on the bed, checking all this stuff out, and I would wake up, either the bed would like drop out and hit the ground, or in my swing dreams, I would slowly descend back to earth. And when I get close to the ground, boom, I'd wake up. And it happened to me too many times to count.
Is that an OBE, William?
Oh, well, that's an atypical OBE that children have referred to me thousands of times. Floating in the bed, floating to friends' homes, floating. In other words, we go where our mind directs. That's for all of us. Children, by the way, this is an interesting topic because many people are unaware that children are very open to out-of-body experiences. It's a very common experience, and actually we begin to shut down around puberty, age 12 or so. But children have an incredible potential for OBEs, especially for the first 10 years of their life. And of course, their parents often tell them, it's only a dream. They begin to shut them down. But this is a very common experience. And what you just heard is what I have. I probably have 1,000 different stories that are almost identical to that. Floating in your bed, going to see a friend. This is very much an OBE. But remember, as a child, they don't have enough, let's just say, knowledge on the subject to begin to work with it. So it's strictly a spontaneous experience. But imagine if you knew what was going on, you could take that and then begin to direct it.
Aren't the great OBEs also the ones where you can go to other planetary systems?
Oh, absolutely. There's no limit to what we can do.
That's got to be exciting. Absolutely exciting. Next.
Oh, and many people relate that of going to other, let's just say, other planetary systems well beyond our solar system. Some people have these experiences spontaneously, depending on how open you are.
Let's go to Wichita, Kansas. Joe, you're on the air with us. Hi there.
Hi, George. I had a couple of questions for your guest that I would like to have explanations for.
Sure.
It seems like about 90% of the time when I dream, before I go to sleep at night, I always coax myself to try to remember my dreams. And it seems like about 90% of the time I do remember them. And then it seems like about 50% of that, 50% of the time of the dreams that I do remember come true. But the weirdest part about my dreams is that I wake up with severe emotions. It could be joy, it could be sadness. I've woken up crying, I've woken up very angry, because of my dream. And I'd like an explanation on why that happens. And also, I probably about 5 or 10 times in my life, there's been situations to where when I do wake up, I'm half awake and half asleep. but it feels like I'm paralyzed, and I don't know if that falls into the old hag situation, but I can yell and scream and try to latch out and move as hard as I want to, and I'm a big guy. But it doesn't matter what I do, I can't wake myself up. And then all of a sudden it just snaps and I'm awake.
Well, let me answer the latter one first. That's a classic preliminary stage of an OBE. The key to get over that, if you want to self-initiate, to take this to a next level, you direct yourself away from your body. The next time that happens, just think door now or window now. Focus on a location away from your body, and you will begin to separate. See, most people don't really separate very far from their bodies because they've been conditioned, they've kind of attached themselves to it, for lack of a better word. It's like a gelatin mold, an energy mold. And they have to begin to direct their energy body to move away from their physical body. And that's exactly what you will do by using this technique. Next time you have that situation, strictly think door now, window now, and you will begin to move and be open to it. And you will begin to move away from your body. And then after you're away from it, awareness now is another helpful technique. It will bring more consciousness into that energy body. Now, getting to your first question, often when people... now, little preface here. No one really knows what happens during one-third of our existence. No one. No matter what people may say, it is quite the mystery. Now, many people, including me, feel that we are far more active than we perceive ourselves to be during sleep. Now, everybody's different, but many people actually, let's just say, leave their bodies and do participate on other levels of reality. And in these, just this energy encounters, they are working on themselves. Now, this is my perception of this. We are a multidimensional being. We're a spiritual being. And when at night we're entering an altered state of consciousness, we're accessing these other levels of ourselves, and we're actually working on our, in other words, emotional body. We're working on our intellectual body. We're trying to remove blockages.
William, I don't want to be morbid here, but would you kind of take us through the steps of death? What happens to us?
Well, at death, of course, it is an out-of-body experience. It's a little unique, but in this regard, because we do enter this other reality, the idea of the tunnel that's talked about by Dr. Raymond Moody and everyone is our mind's interpretation of this interdimensional opening. And we are met by loved ones who have already passed. This is a joyous event. And once we accept these people as we join in their reality, we essentially become part of their consensus reality. These are form-based. Generally, these realities are very much duplicates of the physical world that we've known in the past. One of the shocking things I like to share is that this also fuels the reincarnation process, because most people end up joining and entering a relatively dense reality that's part of the astral plane. So they don't go to the higher levels of reality. That's why in the Tibetan Book of the Dead they stress the importance of going to the clear light of the void, which means go beyond form-based realities. Mm-hmm. Very important. The entire Tibetan Book of the Dead is a training manual to go beyond form-based realities. And this is really an essential element that's sadly lacking in our religious training today.
Now, what do you do with the results of this 18,000 participant study, this survey? What do you do?
Well, I compile them and present the information, of course, at lectures and workshops that I do. And I also, I'm working on another, I'm going to publish the updated information in my next book. And I try to share the information with as many people as possible. That's one of the focuses I'm working on now, is to present a wider, more comprehensive view of the unseen reality that we all will confront, at this process we call death.
All right, back to the phones we go. Wild card line. Leanne, you're on the air with us. Hi there.
Hi, George.
Welcome.
I've got a question for your guest.
Okay.
And you and I have spoke several times, and I have had some really weird experiences, I guess, from the time I was 4 or 5 years old. And for the most part, they were kind of scary. And, George, I'd even told you a few that I've had. It seems like I've had a lot more of them in the last 2 years since I moved into where I live.
Yep.
But this last one I had was not scary. It was rather peaceful, and unlike the others, I was fully consciously awake. I was laying on my bed. I was trying to go to sleep, but I was having trouble, so I was just laying there on the bed with my eyes closed. And when I closed my eyes, it was weird because it was like I could see, but it wasn't really where, it wasn't my bedroom. I was seeing somewhere else. And then all of a sudden, these, like, the best way I could describe them would be like bubbles, like light. They were bubbles, but they were lights. And, it started out just 2 or 3, and then it just got more and more to where I was just surrounded with them, and as far as I could see were these bubbles. And I don't know if I really did this, if I really did raise my arm up in front of my face. Now, I never opened my eyes during the whole thing. But when I raised my arm or whatever it was, it didn't look like my arm. It didn't even look like a shadow of my arm, like when you'd have your eyes closed. It was like a light blue form, like a bright light. And this only lasted, to me, it seemed like it lasted maybe 2 or 3 minutes, but it could have been longer, it could have been shorter. And then after just a few short minutes of it, I was able to open my eyes, and I was fine. And, it didn't startle me. I didn't have the jarring feeling back into my body like most people, even I've had in the past. And I wasn't doing any kind of drugs. I was sober as a judge. I was just laying here on my bed, and it just happened. And I just wondered what that was and why maybe over the last couple of years, I've had a lot more of these type of experiences. This one being the only one where I really wasn't frightened.
Are these OBEs, Bill?
Definitely. That is an OBE.
Wow.
That's exactly what it is. When you leave if you look at your own hand, I even described this in one of my books. I've looked at my own body. Now, it depends on what vibrational level you're at, but often your body, for me, I perceive myself to be exactly what you just described. My hand looked like they were made of blue stars. They were like energy stars. That's what they look like. And the globes, of course, are more than likely people. Because remember, like I was saying earlier, humanoid form is not our natural state. Consciousness uses these external forms for experience. But our natural state of, once you would prolong your out-of-body experience, you become a globe of consciousness with 360-degree viewpoint. Now, that's if you maintain that's exactly what you encountered. If you would have relaxed, and as you gain an experience, you'll be able to communicate with these globes. They probably are people that you know. And you were feeling peaceful because you were surrounded by people that probably love you. And this is very common. Everything you described is a typical, and I hate to use the word typical, but it is a very common experience. And remember, our mind is creating our perception of this. But you can take this to the next level, is that next time allow yourself to go beyond your body. Actually think door now, and you can move beyond your body, and you can begin to communicate actively with these people that were within your presence. And it becomes very exciting. This may have been, often visitations are from dead loved ones that have passed. The length of time isn't as important as people think. but it's often people that maybe your father, your mother, or people that are very close to you, and they're essentially connecting with you and saying hi, because now you're at their level. They can communicate. That's an exciting experience, and congratulations. The more you're open to these experiences, the more they will happen, and the more they can develop if you don't allow any fear-based thoughts to block you.
Let's go to our first-time caller line. You're on with William Buhlman. Hi there.
How you doing?
We are well, thanks. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Indianapolis.
Okay, great, thanks.
Well, I'm originally from St. Louis, for one.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. I'm just calling because I'm so amazed to hear that someone has had another ability like me and to be able to do it naturally and have made history from it. I'm only 23 years old. When I was 6, that was my first meditation I have ever had in my life. No one ever taught me. No one ever trained me. This is nothing that my family really condones. I always had this ability to do it naturally, like I said, the earliest I can recall since the age of 6. From 6 to 9, I developed the power to have an out-of-body experience. And me being so young at the age of 9 and not really knowing how to control everything, my first experience was negative, but I digress from it. And from 9 on, through my teenagers and everything, like, it was such a wonderful experience. And I was able to communicate with some people and to, be able to teach them this ability. And I never knew what this ability was as I was younger, but as I got older, I was more aware of my surroundings because the universe has spoken to me, in so many different ways. But my experience comes at the age of 17, which is kind of shocking. When I was 17, I came home, I had a frustrated day, and, I laid down, normal sleep, and everything, and I didn't expect to go out of my body this particular evening because normally I can control it. This particular evening, I had an out-of-body experience, and I went to my fear zone. And my fear zone of, my hell or nothingness is static. I am very afraid of static. And I actually went to the zone of that's where I was, and I could not come back out. And somehow I triggered a telepathic connection, and I did actually levitate. And the only proof I have of that is because it wasn't the normal vibrations that I would feel, the bed and things like that. The only clue I had that I actually levitated smallly off the bed, and at the time I had weighed 245 pounds, is because one of the bricks that was holding my bed up had collapsed underneath me, and my bed was on the floor when I had awoken. Now, after that point, things changed because I wasn't connected with the hive mind the way I was before this experience. And after this experience, I would randomly go into people's dreams of who I knew, and they would call me and tell me, I had a dream about you, or were you over here? Because you just look like you float and you sleep, But it's just, it definitely changed after 17 because it's I lost a natural connection that I had, and I've been wondering how to get it back safely because I have a child now, and she sleeps with me, and I had OBE 2 months ago, and she went with me.
She went with you?
Yes, and that scared me because for her to unbeknownstly come in with me where I was.
Okay, well, let's get Bill's take, okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, if you're concerned about the negativism, let's go back to the child, which, by the way, that's a wonderful experience. And it's also not that uncommon for a child to accompany their mother. Earlier in the show, I was talking a little bit about communication, sometimes even before birth. But just so you know, that is very common. Mothers and children are very much connected. So if you leave your body, this is especially if they're sleeping in the same room. This will occur. As far as the fear, I think what you're dealing with is of course, your own fears. For some reason, you connected with an experience that scared you, and you internalized that fear. And it's going to take a little bit of your own work. I would surround yourself with light and begin to work on essentially purging that fear from your own energy field. And that will begin to influence, because remember, we carry our thoughts with us. We can't escape our own thoughts. And if we have any kind of fear, we'll just bring it with us when we leave our bodies. Same goes with any kind of blockage or baggage we carry. So we have to begin to exercise this, to really get it out of our energy system. And I think you'll see a change. Begin to bathe yourself. For instance, when you go to bed at night, bathe yourself in just white light. Feel your entire body cocooned in white light. And I think that will help anyone that's having any kind of fear-based experience.
Okay, super. Let's take one or two more calls. That will be all we'll probably have time for. Wild Card line, you're on the air with us on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
My name is Fred. I'm from San Antonio.
Sure.
Hi, George. Hi, Will. It's an honor to be on.
Hi.
I'm a beginning student of non-denominational spirituality and science, and I'm a big fan of quantum physics. I think it speaks to like the way things are going to be if we embrace what it really means. Any rate, all of my life I've been able to see these like little points of light as far back as I can remember. There's like trillions of them, and from what I can tell about quantum physics, I would say, best guess, it looks like I see individual quantum events. I wonder if this has any connection to do with this type of astral energy, and maybe some connection to it. If you could speak to that particular vein.
Yes, I do believe there is a connection because all energy is connected, and I devoted an entire chapter to this in Adventures Beyond the Body, the connection between quantum physics and metaphysics. Yes, all energy is interconnected. So I also see this. What you described is something that's a common experience for me because I also get these points of light all the time. I mean, it's kind of a strange thing to describe, but I take it for granted now. But yes, I think that's a wonderful. You're beginning to open up, number one. That's why you can even see these points of light. And these are energy manifestations. And I accept them for what it is. I embrace that kind of, and begin to open even more, and you'll see that you may even be able to communicate, which really gets interesting. And not only out of body, but even in the physical state. So the key is to become as open as possible and allow these things to develop on their own.
Okay, final caller or so. You're on the air on Coast to Coast. Hi there, Renee.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hey, George. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, I was wondering if you guys had ever read the Bhagavad Gita as it is. It talks all about self-realization and controlling the senses and emotions of your mind.
I've read interpretations of it, but I've not read, obviously, the actual one.
Yeah, it's as it is. It was actually written... He took it from the ancient text, right?
Yes.
It is, and he interpreted it word for word. His name was Srila Prabhupada.
And we got to hope he interpreted it the right way.
Yeah, the right way, exactly. And he was a very self-realized man, very excellent man. And I was just wondering if you guys had read that and, like, what happens to you after you die. What's your take on that?
William, we've got a minute left, and I want to get your toll-free number out as well for your work. It's 888-426-3917. Go ahead, a minute left.
Yes, I have read that. I try to be up on a lot of the texts that are out there, spiritual texts. It's interesting because a lot of it, the problem with a lot of the ancient religious texts is always the interpretation. I'm a little bit concerned always because remember, all men's perception are flawed. There's just no getting around it. So we have to keep in mind that it's always the interpretation of a human mind behind what we're reading. And that goes for any text, in any book. So I look at all the religious books as let's just say in a description of energy manifestations. And yes, I found that to be extremely interesting. I also found the Tibetan Book of the Dead to be extremely fascinating. But the main thing is, I feel, is to go beyond philosophy and begin to have our own experiences.
Absolutely. William, thanks so much for being on the program. Appreciate it. For Steve Carr, Dan Galante, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladesseur, Ross Mitchell, Ian Punnett, and Art Bell. I'm George Norrie. Somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM, we'll See you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.